So you came here last night playing with 3 bands. Give us a glimpse as to what it means to play with the first band, second band, and a third band as a drummer.
Sure.
What kind of hats that you're wearing?
Well, I come from a diverse musical background, so it's like a big part of who I am musically, and I think like for those who trying to play and become professional musicians, for my career, that diversity has really allowed me to get to the point where I am and to work a lot and be a consistent, like, professional working drummer. And all those challenges also raise the bar of what's expected of you. Because even if you can play circles around the guys you're playing with, say you can go and you're playing with a band that plays really simple music, and I can do all these different types of things and time signatures, and I got chops. If you can't play that music with authenticity and make it feel and sound the way that the music is played, then you're still a student in that context. My mother is a Hungarian folk singer, from Budapest. And my father is a jazz drummer who's also worked with different types of African musicians and all sorts of rock and all sorts of genres himself. And Stephen McCraven's worked with Yusef Lateef, and Archie Shepp and Sam Rivers and a lot of great jazz artists. So that was already a diverse background for me musically. And growing up in like the 90s, listening to hip hop and, just all the popular music, rock from that day, that was a big part of who I was. When I was a teenager, I started a band with my friends. Cold Duck Complex was like a hip hop jazz group. And meanwhile, I was playing pickup jazz gigs where I could through people my father knew, and met a community of other musicians and played with some indie rock bands. So I find like playing with different bands and different styles has always been a bedrock of my study as a musician, as well as like the aspect that it helps me get work, because I can play with all sorts of people, and if something is asked of me, I'm up for that challenge. For instance, in Chicago, there's a lot of musicians that find themselves playing, a club date, like a late night spot, a daytime gig, a brunch gig, a corporate gig, a wedding gig. It doesn't, you could have several types of gigs in the same day. So like coming to North Sea to play 3 gigs, I'm not starting from scratch like, oh my God, how am I going to play 3 sets of music? That's fine. Some club dates you're going to play 3 sets of music. Yeah, but they're different approaches, and so you got to wear different hats. I mean, I've played gigs where I've been in the opening band and the headliner. Mm-hmm. And each band is going to have its own culture and its own things, and so I'll try to take an approach for that music and for that band leader, because I am there to make that person's vision and their music come alive and do it from my vantage point, keeping my own voice. I'm not necessarily changing who I am as a musician, but I am going to interpret what this person or band leader wants from my opinion. So I'm still being me, I'm still playing as myself with my own unique character, but I'm doing it to how I believe the music should sound. And often as a sideman or a musician in any capacity, not only are we playing our instrument to the best of our ability, but I believe we should be like thinking like a producer, and thinking, okay, am I too loud? Am I too soft? Does the music need more energy? And if you're listening to the music, if you're really listening, I think it actually becomes easier to have control over things like, am I dragging? Am I rushing? If we listen to a record and we're like clapping along or tapping our feet, you will notice if the music rushes or drags as a listener. More, I think, quicker than if you're playing and you're in the moment, and it's easy to start rushing or dragging because we've lost our focus. And so I think actively listening to the music that you're playing, or thinking like a producer, and like hearing yourself outside of yourself.
It's helicopter view.
Helicopter view. It's an out of body experience. His music is deep, you know.
So that's hard.
That is the challenge, and that requires, you know, I think the proficiency and mastery of your instrument. That's where that comes into play, because when you can find a place where you're comfortable behind your instrument to express yourself, then you can open up different parts of your mind to more parts of the music, you know. It's like the sixth musician on the